The copper scent of blood filled Seraphina's nostrils as another tray crashed against the stone wall, missing her head by inches. She didn't need her sight to know the breakfast plates had shattered. She could hear each piece scatter across the kitchen floor, feel the hot porridge splatter against her worn dress. Useless, blind rat! Valencia's shrill voice pierced through the chaos. Can't even serve tea properly. What good is an Omega who can't see? Seraphina remained still, her unseeing silver eyes focused on nothing as she felt for the wall behind her. 23 years of darkness had taught her patience. 23 years of being the lowest Omega in the Crimson Fang Pack had taught her survival. "Mommy?" a small voice whispered from the doorway. Her 7-year-old son, Kael. Her everything. Even at his young age, he had an uncanny ability to sense emotions. He always knew when she was hurt, could smell changes in people's moods that even seeing wolves missed. "Back to your corner, little mutt," Valencia snarled, "or I'll throw you in the cellars with the rogues." Seraphina's fingers curled into fists. Mock her, hurt her. She could endure it all. But Kael, "Please, Lady Valencia. He's just a child. A bastard child." Valencia grabbed Seraphina's long midnight hair, yanking her head back. "Born from a blind Omega whore who won't even name his father. You're lucky Alpha Magnus allows you both to live in our pack at all." The scent hit Seraphina then. Pine forests and thunderstorms, power and barely leashed violence. Alpha Magnus Draven had entered the kitchen. Everyone immediately dropped to their knees, except Seraphina, who couldn't see the visual cue, and remained standing a moment too long. "Insolent creature!" Valencia raised her hand to strike. "Enough." Magnus's deep voice rumbled through the room like distant thunder. "The Northern Palace has sent word. King Theron Nightshade seeks someone." Seraphina's heart stopped. That name, Theron Nightshade, the Alpha King who ruled over all 12 packs. Why did hearing it make her soul tremble? "Every pack must present their Omegas," Magnus continued, his footsteps coming closer. "Even worthless blind ones. He searches for a woman who saved his life 8 years ago during the Blood Moon Massacre." 8 years ago. Seraphina's hand instinctively went to the scar across her ribs. 8 years ago, she'd been 15, lost in the forest during the deadliest rogue attack in history. She remembered the screams, the smoke, pulling someone from beneath burning debris, though she couldn't see who, only that his blood had smelled like ancient forests and coming storms. "Mommy saved someone," Kael piped up suddenly. "She tells me stories about the night she pulled a wolf from the flames. She couldn't see him, but she said he smelled like—" "Silence!" Valencia backhanded the boy, sending him tumbling. Something snapped inside Seraphina. The submissive Omega vanished. She moved with surprising speed, finding her son by scent alone, pulling him against her. "Don't touch him. You dare—" "Valencia." Magnus's voice held warning. "The boy comes too. King Theron wants every child who might have been born from that night. He believes the woman who saved him may have borne his heir." Seraphina's blood turned to ice. Number. It couldn't be. The man she'd saved that night. The one who'd whispered promises in her ear before disappearing. The one who'd left her with— She held Kael tighter. Her son smelled nothing like other wolves. He carried hints of thunderstorms and ancient power no 7-year-old should possess. She'd hidden it so carefully, masking his scent with herbs, never letting anyone suspect. "The presentation begins at midnight tonight," Magnus announced. "Every Omega will attend, even the blind one. King Theron has an unusual way of testing. He claims he'll know his savior by scent and touch alone." As footsteps retreated, Valencia leaned close to Seraphina's ear. "You think you can hide among the beautiful Omegas? The king would never want a useless blind rat. I'll make sure you never even get close enough for him to catch your scent." After everyone left, Kael pressed his small face against his mother's shoulder. Mommy, why does that name make you cry? Serafina hadn't realized tears were falling. What name, my love? Theron Nightshade. When the Alpha said it, you smelled like rain and sadness and like the night you tell me about. The night with the burning wolf. Her precious boy had inherited more than just his father's scent. He'd gotten his perception too. Mommy, Kyle whispered, his small voice carrying an odd certainty. I think the king is looking for you. And I think he's my papa. The copper scent of blood was gone, replaced by the phantom memory of ancient pines and a dying wolf's promise. I'll find you again. Wait for me. But how could she tell her son that sometimes promises burn to ash, just like the forest had that night? The northern palace loomed before them, or so Serafina was told. All she could sense was the dramatic drop in temperature and the way the wind carried 1,000 different wolf scents, each pack bringing their finest omegas for presentation. Stay close to me, she whispered to Kale, her fingers interlaced with his small ones. The other omegas from Crimson Fang Pack had been given silk gowns and jewels. Serafina wore the same rough servant's dress, deliberately kept tattered by Valenkria's orders. Look at them all, someone whispered nearby. The Swan Moon Pack brought their triplet omegas, identical beauties with golden eyes. Stormridge Pack has that omega who can sing the old songs, another voice added. They say her voice can entrance any alpha. Serafina kept her head down, using her walking stick to navigate the marble steps. Each tap echoed in what must have been a vast entrance hall. She'd told Kale stories about her mysterious past, how she'd been found as a baby at Crimson Fang's borders during a storm. No parents, no pack marks, nothing but a silver blanket she'd long since lost. Mommy. Kale tugged her hand urgently. There are guards everywhere, but they smell wrong. They smell scared? Before she could respond, a herald's voice boomed. His Majesty, Alpha King Theron Nightshade, Lord of the 12 Packs, survivor of the Blood Moon Massacre, seeks the one who gave him life when death had claimed him. The hall fell silent. Then came footsteps. Powerful, measured, predatory. The very air seemed to bow before him. Serafina's Omega instinct screamed at her to submit, to neck, to kneel. But she couldn't see the visual cues everyone else followed, leaving her standing a moment too long again. You dare remain standing before the king, a guard snarled, moving toward her. She's blind, you fool. Valenkria's honeyed voice cut in. My apologies, Your Majesty. This damaged Omega can barely function. We only brought her because you demanded every Omega attend. Damaged? The king's voice. God, that voice. It rolled through Serafina like thunder and lightning, like ancient forests and dark promises. She knew that voice. It had whispered her name in the darkness 8 years ago. She cannot see, Your Majesty, Magnus explained, blind since birth. Completely useless as an Omega, she can barely serve tea without spilling it. And yet she stands while others kneel. Footsteps came closer. Tell me, Omega, why should I not take offense? Serafina's throat felt dry as sand. I cannot see to know when to kneel, Your Majesty. I meant no disrespect. Mommy's not useless. Kale's voice rang out suddenly. She's the bravest, strongest. Kale, no. Serafina reached for him, but his hand had already left hers. Your son? The king's attention shifted. She heard him move closer to where Kale must have been standing. How old are you, pup? 7, Your Majesty, and 3/4. A long pause, then, quietly, 7. Born nearly 8 years ago then. Yes. Mommy says I came early because of the fire and the scared night and... Kale's voice suddenly stopped, a small gasp escaping him. You smell like... Like what, young one? Like the wolf from Mommy's stories. The one she saved from the burning tree. She said he smelled like old forests and storm clouds and you smell exactly like that. The silence was deafening. Seraphina's heart hammered against her ribs. Is this true? The king's voice had changed, carried an edge sharp as broken glass. You were there during the Blood Moon massacre? Many were there, Your Majesty, Valencria interjected smoothly. Half the Omegas here tonight fled through those forests. This blind girl probably just heard stories and I asked her. Not you. Seraphina lifted her chin slightly. I was there. Tell me what you remember. Fire. The word came out barely a whisper. Screams. The smell of burning flesh and rogue's poison. I was lost, separated from my pack. I couldn't see the flames, but I could feel their heat, hear the trees falling. And I heard someone trapped, under burning debris. The smoke was so thick, but I followed the sound, found him by touch. He was dying, ribs crushed, barely breathing. How did you save him? Seraphina's fingers unconsciously went to her scarred ribs. I pulled him free, dragged him to the hidden cave I'd found earlier, used the healing herbs I'd gathered, silverleaf and moonbane, though I couldn't see if I was applying them correctly. I just did what I could. This blind rat? Valencria laughed shrilly. Your Majesty, surely you don't believe... What happened after? The king ignored her completely. Heat flooded Seraphina's cheeks. After. After was when the dying wolf had pulled her close, when his fever had broken, when he'd whispered promises and claimed her in the darkness, when Kale had been conceived. He left before dawn, said he had to return to his pack, said he'd... She swallowed hard. Said he'd find me again. You never saw his face. I've never seen any face, Your Majesty. Another long silence. Then the king spoke, his voice carrying to the entire hall. The presentation will proceed differently than planned. Each Omega will be tested individually, in complete darkness. Gasps rippled through the crowd. If my savior truly was blind, he continued, then I will find her the way she found me, without sight. Begin immediately. The testing chambers were plunged into absolute darkness, or so the panicked whispers around Seraphina indicated. For her, nothing had changed. She sat in the corner of the waiting hall, Kale pressed against her side, as Omega after Omega was called in for their private test. They come out crying, an Omega near her whimpered. Whatever he's doing in there, none of them last more than a minute before being dismissed. I heard he makes them navigate obstacles in the dark, another whispered, to prove they could have saved him without sight. That's not all, a third voice added, trembling. He sensed them, thoroughly. Says he marked his savior with his own scent that night, that it would still linger after all these years. Seraphina's hand instinctively went to the crook of her neck, where the deepest concentration of scent glands lay. She'd scrubbed herself raw for months after that night, terrified someone would detect the Alpha King's scent on her. But sometimes, in quiet moments, she could still sense it. Ancient forests and lightning branded into her very soul. The Swan Moon triplets have been dismissed, someone announced, causing more gasps. Even Princess Isabel from Iron Clawpack failed, another reported. She actually knew details about the massacre, but the king said her hands were too soft. No burn scars from pulling someone from flames. Seraphina flexed her fingers. The old burn scars were still there, raised ridges across her palms that had never fully healed. The silverleaf and moonbane she'd used that night, herbs her mysterious instincts had guided her to, had saved his life, but marked her hands forever. Mommy, Kale whispered against her ear, your scent is changing. You smell like... like you're calling to someone. Before she could respond, Valenkria's voice cut through the noise. Oh, this is ridiculous. Your Majesty, you're wasting time with these tests. I happen to know exactly who saved you. The hall fell silent. Is that so? The king's voice carried from somewhere near the testing chamber entrance. Yes, it was me, Valenkria declared. I was young then, barely presented as an Omega. I was too modest to come forward initially, but watching these frauds attempt to claim my deed. You were in the Bloodwood Forest that night? Of course. I dragged you to safety, tended your wounds. You were delirious with fever. Perhaps you don't fully remember. Step forward then. Serafina heard Valenkria's confident footsteps, smelled her cloying rose perfume intensify with smugness. Give me your hands. A pause. Then the king's voice, deadly quiet. These hands have never known labor. No burn scars. You lie. Scars fade. I had access to the best healers. And your scent? His voice dropped lower. You smell of roses and ambition, nothing like... He stopped abruptly. Your Majesty? Bring the blind Omega. Serafina's blood turned to ice. Surely you're not going to waste time with that useless... Valenkria's protest was cut short. Now. Rough hands grabbed Serafina's arms, hauling her forward. Kyle cried out, trying to follow, but was held back. Mommy! Let her go. She's not useless. She saved you. I know she did. She has the scars. She tells me about the forest wolf. Please. Serafina was shoved into what felt like a smaller space. The door shut behind her, and suddenly she was alone with him. The king. The alpha whose child she'd secretly borne. They say you're blind. Yes. Since birth? Yes. Then you navigate the world through other senses. Footsteps circled her slowly. Tell me what you smell right now. Serafina took a breath. Ancient pine forests after rain. Lightning before it strikes. Power, old and barely contained. And... She paused. And... Pain. Old pain. In your ribs. Left side. The bones healed wrong. You still struggle to breathe deeply sometimes, especially in cold weather. The footsteps stopped. How could you possibly? I can smell it in your breath pattern. The slight wheeze you hide. The way you favor your right side. The silverleaf and moonbane I used that night. They leave a trace. You've been taking them for years, haven't you? For the pain? Silence. Then, give me your hands. Serafina extended them, palms up. She felt the whisper of air as he moved closer, caught his sharp intake of breath. These scars. From pulling burning wood away. Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. You were trapped under a fallen oak. The bark was on fire, but I couldn't let go. Not until you were free. His fingers. God, his fingers were touching her scars, tracing each ridge and line. The Omega who saved me, I bit her. Marked her in my delirium, though we never mated fully. If you're truly her, you'll bear my mark. Serafina's whole body trembled. I... Show me. With shaking fingers, she pulled down the high collar of her dress, revealing the crook of her neck. The silence stretched so long she wondered if he was still there. Then she felt it, the lightest brush of fingers over the faded bite mark. Impossible, he breathed. It's still there. After all these years. The door suddenly burst open. Your Majesty, the boy, he's collapsed. Serafina's maternal instincts overrode all protocol. She rushed toward the door, following the guard's panicked scent, her walking stick forgotten. Kale. She dropped to her knees, finding her son's small body by touch. His skin burned with fever, his breathing shallow. My baby, what's wrong? He just collapsed, someone explained. Started convulsing, His eyes rolled back. His wolf, Serafina gasped, recognizing the symptoms. He's too young. Wolves don't emerge until 12 or 13. He's only 7. Move aside. The king's commanding presence filled the space. Let me see him. No. Serafina pulled Kyle against her chest. Please. He's all I have. I'm trying to help. His voice gentled slightly. This isn't a normal emergence. His wolf is God's teeth. He smells like you, Serafina whispered, her worst secret spilling out. He smells like you because he is yours. The entire hall went deadly silent. That's impossible, Valencria screeched. This blind rat is lying, trying to trap you with... Silence. The king's roar shook the windows. Then, quieter. Everyone out. Now. Except the mother and child. The scramble of retreating footsteps was thunderous. Within moments, they were alone. 8 years ago, Theron said slowly, the Omega who saved me. We, in my delirium, in the cave. You were dying. Serafina's voice was barely audible. The fever broke, but you were insistent. Said your wolf recognized mine. Said you needed to thank me properly. Heat flooded her cheeks at the memory. I took advantage of a blind girl? No. The word came out sharp. You asked permission. Multiple times. Even half dead you asked. And I said yes because your wolf called to mine in a way I'd never felt before. Kyle whimpered in her arms, his small body trembling. He's shifting too early because he's near his father, Theron said suddenly. Royal bloodlines sometimes do this. The pup's wolf recognizes its sire and tries to emerge to submit. But at 7, it could kill him. There must be something... There is. She felt him move closer. I need to acknowledge him. Formally. As my heir. It will calm his wolf. Let it settle back to sleep until he's old enough. Your heir? But you don't even know if I'm really... Your scars don't lie. The mark on your neck doesn't lie. And this pup... His voice caught. He has my mother's eyes. I saw them when he spoke earlier. Silver with gold rings. The nightshade royal eyes. No one outside my bloodline has ever carried them. Kyle's breathing grew more labored. Please, Serafina begged. Save him. I'll do anything. Give him to me. Every instinct screamed against releasing her pup, but Kale was dying. She loosened her hold, felt strong arms lift her son away. I, Theron Alejandro Nightshade, Alpha King of the 12 Packs, acknowledge this pup as blood of my blood, heir of my line, son of my soul. Power rippled through the air like lightning. Kyle gasped, his breathing suddenly easing. Papa, his small voice was wondering, you found us? I found you, little wolf. The emotion in Theron's voice was raw. Rest now. Your wolf needs to sleep a bit longer. Serafina felt tears streaming down her face. Is he? He'll be fine. But he needs to stay close to me for the next few hours while his wolf settles. A pause. You both do. Your Majesty. Theron. In that cave, you called me Theron. The memory of gasping his name in the darkness made her flush. That was different. You weren't the king then, just a dying wolf who needed help. And you weren't the woman who haunts my dreams, just a blind girl who smelled like moonflowers and courage. Moonflowers. She'd forgotten he'd said that, compared her scent to the rare flowers that only bloomed in complete darkness. You searched for me? She asked quietly. Every day for 8 years, but I was looking for someone who could see. It never occurred to me. He trailed off. Magnus said you were born blind? A defect, she said bitterly. Makes me worthless as an Omega, according to everyone. Worthless. His laugh was dark. You navigated a burning forest, found me by sound alone, dragged a full-grown alpha to safety despite being unable to see, healed me with herbs, identified by touch and smell. Then you vanished before dawn, leaving me with only the memory of moonflowers and the softest hands that had ever touched my skin. I had to leave. If my pack found me with a strange alpha, both our lives would have been forfeit. So you carried my pup alone? Gave birth alone? I wasn't alone. I had Kyle. She reached out, found her son's sleeping form in Theron's arms. He was worth everything. Mommy? Kyle mumbled sleepily. Papa smells safe. Can we stay with him? Before she could answer, the doors burst open again. Your Majesty! Magnus's voice, tight with barely concealed rage. This Omega belongs to Crimson Fang Pack. You cannot simply claim... Can't I? Theron's voice was silk over steel. She bears my mark. She bore my son. By ancient law, that makes her mine. She's blind. Worthless. You'd make a blind Omega your queen? The temperature in the room plummeted. When Theron spoke, his voice carried the promise of violence. Say one more word against her, and I'll rip your throat out myself. The royal chambers were too quiet, too spacious. Seraphina sat rigid on what felt like the softest bed she'd ever touched, while Kyle slept peacefully beside her, finally stable after his wolf's premature emergence. You're afraid, Theron observed from somewhere near the window. I'm in an unfamiliar place with a man I don't know. You knew me well enough 8 years ago. Heat flooded her cheeks. That was different. You were hurt, vulnerable. I was half feral with pain and need. His voice moved closer. My wolf had found its mate and nearly claimed you completely, if you hadn't stopped me. But I did stop you. She pulled Kale closer protectively. Because even half dead, you listened when I said to wait. Why did you? You were delirious. It wouldn't have been right. And in the morning? She turned her face away. In the morning, you were gone. Left before dawn without a word. That's not... He stopped abruptly. Seraphina, I didn't leave. I was taken. Her unseeing eyes widened. What? Royal guards found me at dawn, dragged me back while I was still weak. By the time I recovered enough to return, the forest was crawling with soldiers. They said all the survivors had been relocated, but no one knew of a blind Omega girl. His voice was bitter. I searched every pack, every territory. I hid, she admitted quietly. When I realized I was pregnant, I knew what would happen. An unmated blind Omega with a pup? They'd have taken Kale, claimed I was unfit. So you pretended he was nobody's. Endured the shame of being called a whore rather than risk losing him. Tears slipped down her cheeks. He was all I had of you. These past 8 years, when Valencria would beat me, when the pack treated me like dirt, I'd remember that night. How gentle you were despite your pain. How you touched me like I was precious, not broken. She felt the bed dip beside her. Show me, Theron said suddenly. Show you what? How you experience the world. Teach me to see the way you do. Before she could respond, she heard him moving, and then, complete darkness for him as he blindfolded himself. What are you doing? Learning. Guide me. Cautiously, she reached out, found his hand. It was larger than she remembered, calloused from sword work. The world isn't dark for me, she explained softly. It's full of other things. Like right now you're anxious, I can smell it. Your heartbeat is elevated, but not from fear. From anticipation? What else? She tilted her head. You haven't been sleeping. There's exhaustion in your breathing pattern. And grief? Old grief, mixed with something else. Hope, maybe? You died, he said suddenly. What? That's what they told me. When I couldn't find you, they said you must have died in the forest, that no blind Omega could have survived alone. I mourned you for 8 years. I mourned you too, she admitted. The wolf who promised to find me but never came. I'm here now. For how long? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Until you realize what having a blind queen would mean? Until your advisors convince you to choose someone worthy? His hand tightened around hers. You want to know what I realized in that testing chamber? She nodded, forgetting he couldn't see it. Every Omega who came in reeked of ambition, of greed. They wanted the crown, the title, the power. But you? You smelled terrified. Not of me, of being discovered. You would have walked away, wouldn't you? Even knowing I was looking for you. Kale deserves better than a mother who brings him shame. Shame? His free hand found her face, cupped her cheek. You saved the Alpha King, bore his heir, survived 8 years of torture to protect our son. There is no shame in you, only strength most wolves couldn't dream of. A knock interrupted them. Your Majesty, a guard called urgently. Alpha Magnus demands the return of his Omega. He's invoking pack law. He also mentioned his brother, Alpha Garrett of the Northern Wastes, is on his way to support his claim. Theron's growl was purely animal. He has no claim. Actually, Seraphina said quietly, he does. I'm not officially yours. The mark is old, incomplete. Without a proper mating, I still belong to Crimson Fang. Then we'll mate. Tonight. You can't just... Can't I? He pulled off the blindfold and she could feel the intensity of his gaze. Unless you don't want. Your Majesty. The guard sounded panicked now. Alpha Magnus says if his Omega isn't returned by midnight, he'll petition the Council of Alphas. He's claiming kidnapping of a pack member. Seraphina felt Kale stir beside her. Mommy? Are they going to take us away from Papa? The broken hope in her son's voice shattered her heart. No, little wolf, Theron promised, though she heard the uncertainty beneath his determination. No one's taking you anywhere. But through the window she could smell them, dozens of wolves from Crimson Fang Pack, gathering outside the palace. Magnus wasn't backing down. The throne room buzzed with tension as 5 alpha leaders sat in judgment. Seraphina stood in the center, her hands trembling as she felt hundreds of eyes upon her. Kyle had been taken to another room. For his safety, they said. But she knew it was leverage. The law is clear, Magnus announced, his voice carrying cruel satisfaction. An Omega belongs to their birth pack unless formally mated or released. This blind Omega has been neither. She bears my mark, Theron's voice thundered from his throne. An incomplete mark from 8 years ago, Elder Alpha Roderick interjected, his ancient voice crackling. Without consummation and a proper ceremony, it means nothing legally. Then I'll mate her now. Under duress? Alpha Cassandra of the Eastern Peaks stood. That would invalidate it. The Omega must choose freely, without coercion. Ask her then, Theron demanded. All attention turned to Seraphina. She lifted her chin, trying to project strength she didn't feel. I... Her voice cracked. I choose... Before you answer, Magnus interrupted smoothly. You should know what happens if you refuse to return. Your son remains pack property. Blind Omegas are deemed unfit mothers. I'll take him back to Crimson Fang tonight. You wouldn't dare, Theron snarled. It's pack law. Unless she's your mate, you have no claim to a pup born on Crimson Fang territory. Seraphina's legs nearly buckled. Please, not Kale. Then come home, Omega. Return to your place, and your son stays with you. Don't listen to him, Theron said urgently. I won't let them... You'll start a war between packs? Elder Roderick asked. Over a blind Omega? The council would never support you. Seraphina smelled Valencria before she heard her. The woman's rose perfume was overwhelming as she approached. Your Majesties, Valencria purred, perhaps there's a solution. The king needs an heir, correct? The boy has been acknowledged. Let him keep the pup as his heir and release the blind Omega back to us. After all, what use is a blind queen? I'd rather die, Theron growled. But would she? Valencria's voice turned sly. Would a mother sacrifice herself for her pup's future? To see him raised as a prince instead of a servant? The room held its breath. Seraphina felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Everything in her screamed to fight, to refuse, but Cale as a prince, safe, educated, loved by his father. You have 1 hour to decide, Magnus announced. Return to Crimson Fang willingly, or we take the boy. Wait, a new voice called out. Young, determined. You're forgetting something. Seraphina's head snapped toward the voice. Cale? No, you're supposed to be... I snuck out, Mommy. His small footsteps ran toward her. And I heard everything. They're all being mean and stupid. Silence, whelp, Magnus snarled. No! Cale's voice carried surprising authority. My papa is the Alpha King, and that means I'm a prince, right? Technically, Elder Roderick conceded. Then I invoke my royal right. Gasps rippled through the room. You're 7, Cassandra said, amused. You don't have royal rights yet. Yes, I do. I heard the guards talking. Any royal blood can demand a trial of truth when someone's lying about pack law. Theron stood slowly. He's right. It's an ancient law, rarely used, but... This is ridiculous, Magnus protested. What could a blind Omega prove in a trial? Not her, Cale said firmly. You keep saying my mommy belongs to Crimson Fang, but I don't think she does. Of course she does. She was born there. Was she? Cale's question hung in the air. Do you have proof? Records? Magnus faltered. She's been with us for 23 years. Since she was a baby, right? Found at your borders during a storm? Cale continued. Mommy told me stories about how you found her, wrapped in a silver blanket with no pack marks, but no birth records, no parents. Just a blind baby you took in. How could you possibly know? Because my mommy tells me everything. And because I can smell lies. Kyle walked toward Magnus. You're lying now. Your scent is all wrong, like rotting fruit. Your heart just skipped. Preposterous. Then prove it, Theron said slowly, understanding dawning in his voice. If she was born to Crimson Fang, there would be records. Birth certificates, parents' names. Records were lost in a fire. Another lie, Kyle announced. Your breathing changed. Valencria stepped forward, panic in her scent. Your Majesty, surely you won't listen to a child? Actually, Elder Roderick stood, his ancient frame creaking. I remember something. 23 years ago, there were rumors. A baby taken from somewhere, raised by a pack that wasn't hers. The trail went cold, but... He moved toward Seraphina, his gait slow but purposeful. She felt him circling her, scenting deeply. Moonflowers, he breathed, by the ancient gods. You're a silver moon Omega. The throne room erupted. That's impossible, Magnus roared. The silver moon pack was destroyed. Not destroyed. Hidden. Roderick's voice carried awe. They were the royal healers, the king's personal pack. They disappeared to protect something, or someone. A blind Omega, Valencria scoffed. Not just blind, Roderick said quietly. Gifted. The Silver Moon Omegas were known for their healing abilities, their power to sense things others couldn't. They called it seeing beyond sight. The silverleaf and moonbane she mentioned. Those are Silvermoon's sacred herbs. Seraphina's world tilted. My parents? Were the last alpha pair of Silvermoon? You weren't abandoned, child. You were hidden. Protected. Until Magnus found you and decided to keep a valuable Omega for himself. Lies! Magnus lunged forward, but Theron was faster, slamming him to the ground. The truth will out, Theron growled. One way or another. The ancient Hall of Truth had been opened for the first time in decades. Seraphina could smell the dust and old magic as she was led to the center circle. The Truth Stone, a relic that glowed when lies were spoken, sat between her and Magnus. This is unnecessary, Magnus protested, but his scent reeked of fear. Then you have nothing to worry about, Theron said coldly. Speak your truth, and the stone will remain dark. Elder Roderick's voice rang out. Magnus Draven, Alpha of Crimson Fang, do you swear this Omega was born to your pack? Yes. The stone flared red. Gasps echoed through the hall. Try again, Roderick commanded. Where did this Omega come from? Magnus remained silent, his breathing harsh. Answer or forfeit all claim, Cassandra warned. There was a convoy, Magnus finally spat. 23 years ago. Silvermoon wolves transporting something precious. My brother Garrett and I attacked, thinking it was gold or weapons. But it wasn't, Roderick prompted. It was a baby. A blind baby wrapped in silver silk with the moonbloom crest, the mark of Silvermoon royalty. Seraphina's legs gave out. Theron caught her before she hit the ground. You killed them? She whispered. My parents? They fought to protect you. Died rather than reveal why you were special. Why? Theron's voice was deadly. Why keep her? Magnus laughed bitterly. A Silvermoon Omega? Even blind, she was invaluable. Their healing abilities, their bloodline. I planned to breed her when she came of age, create my own line of gifted wolves. But she never presented as gifted, Valencria interjected desperately. She's just a useless blind. Because you suppressed it. Kale's young voice rang out. The herbs in her food. I can smell them now that I know what to look for. Wolfsbane and silver root. You've been poisoning her. Poisoning? Theron's roar shook the windows. You've been suppressing her wolf? Her abilities? She would have been too powerful, Magnus admitted, the truth stone forcing his words. A Silvermoon Omega with full abilities? She could have destroyed us all for what we did. The headaches, Seraphina breathed, understanding flooding through her. The pain, whenever I tried to sense more, reached deeper. You were keeping me weak. Mommy gets sick every full moon, Kale added. Really sick, like something's trying to get out. Her wolf, Theron said, his voice full of rage. You've been torturing her wolf for 23 years. The sentence for such crimes is death, Elder Roderick announced. But Seraphina raised her hand. Wait. She stood slowly, finding her balance. Magnus, you said Silvermoon wolves were transporting something precious. Not someone. Something. Magnus went silent. The truth stone pulsed, waiting. What else were they protecting? I don't know. The stone flared red. The truth, Magnus, Roderick commanded. A prophecy, Magnus burst out, about a blind Omega who would birth a son of 2 royal lines. A pup who would unite all packs and end the ancient feuds. They were taking you to the northern temple to be hidden until you came of age. But instead you stole her, Theron said slowly, kept her suppressed, beaten down, never knowing who she was meant to be. She mated with you anyway, Magnus snarled. The prophecy happened despite everything. No, Seraphina said quietly, pieces clicking together. Not despite. Because of. She turned toward where she sensed Theron. If I'd been raised knowing I was special, would you have noticed a privileged Omega at that ball? Or did you notice me because I expected nothing, asked for nothing, saved you wanting nothing in return? Silence fell over the hall. The humblest heart shall crown the highest throne, Elder Roderick quoted softly, the final line of the Silver Moon prophecy. This changes everything, Cassandra announced. A Silver Moon Omega cannot belong to Crimson Fang. Her bloodline supersedes all pack claims. More than that, Roderick added. As the last of Silver Moon royal line, she technically outranks every alpha here except the king himself. You're free, Theron breathed, pulling her close. You're finally free. Not yet, Valencria shrieked, desperation making her reckless. She still can't be queen. She's blind, damaged. The other packs will never accept. Would you like to test that theory? A new voice spoke from the doorway. Seraphina didn't recognize the voice, but Theron's sharp intake of breath told her someone significant had arrived. Mother? Theron sounded shocked. Your Majesty, voices murmured as wolves dropped to their knees. The former Queen Mother had arrived. I've been watching. The elderly woman's voice was strong despite her age. And I have something to say about my grandson and his mother. Seraphina felt the woman approach, scented lavender and ancient power. You saved my son, the Queen Mother said simply. You gave me a grandson. You survived 23 years of torture to protect him. Tell me, what kind of sight do you truly need to be queen? But the ceremonies, the duties, Valencria protested. I was queen for 40 years, the woman cut her off, and I can tell you that the most important quality isn't sight, it's insight, something this Omega has in abundance. She took Seraphina's hands. The question is, will you have us? After all you've endured, will you still choose this path? The healing chambers were quiet except for Kale's excited chatter. For 3 days, the royal healers had been purging 23 years of poison from Seraphina's system. Each treatment left her weaker, but somehow clearer, as if fog was lifting from more than just her mind. Mommy, your eyes are changing, Kyle exclaimed. They're getting brighter, more silver like mine. She's recovering remarkably fast, the healer noted. But then, Silver Moon wolves always were resilient. Seraphina could feel it, something stirring deep within, like a creature waking from decades of sleep. Her wolf, suppressed for so long, was finally emerging. When will she be fully healed? Theron asked from his constant position beside her bed. The physical poison? Another day, but her abilities. The healer paused. Those may take time to manifest. Or they might come all at once. What abilities exactly? Seraphina asked, still adjusting to the idea that she was anything special. Silver Moon wolves were healers, yes, but more than that. They could sense truth, feel emotions. Some even claimed they could see the threads of fate itself. See? Valencria's voice came from the doorway, where she was being held with Magnus for sentencing. Even if she recovers, she'll still be blind. Still useless as a queen. Remove her, Theron ordered, but Seraphina raised her hand. No. Let her watch. She sat up slowly. Let her see what she tried so hard to destroy. As if responding to her words, warmth flooded through her body, not painful, but overwhelming. Power, ancient and pure, raced through her veins. Mommy, Kyle sounded worried. You're glowing. She was. She could feel it, light emanating from within. And then, pain, searing, brilliant pain in her eyes. Seraphina! Theron caught her as she convulsed. Her wolf. The healer sounded awed. It's not just emerging, it's reclaiming what was stolen. The pain peaked, then suddenly, something new. Not sight as others knew it, but something else. She could perceive the world through waves of energy, emotions painted in hues she had no names for. Theron blazed like a winter star, all protective fury and desperate love. Kale sparkled with innocence and joy. And Valencrea. Valencrea was a void of jealousy and hate. I can... Seraphina gasped. I can see. Not faces or objects, but souls, intentions, truth. The inner sight. The Queen Mother breathed from her chair. The rarest silver moon gift. Your mother had it too. You knew my mother? Briefly. She came to court once, seeking sanctuary. She was pregnant with you, terrified of something. She said her child would be born special, born to... She stopped. Born to change everything. This proves nothing, Magnus snarled from his chains. So she has some magical sight. She's still not queen material. Then test her, Seraphina said suddenly, standing on steady legs for the first time in days. Give me any queen's test. You can't be serious, Cassandra said. The queen's trials haven't been invoked in centuries. Then invoke them now. Seraphina faced where she sensed the assembled alphas. 3 trials, isn't it? Wisdom, courage, and heart? You don't have to prove anything, Theron said urgently. Yes, I do. Not for them. For me. She squeezed his hand. I spent 23 years believing I was worthless. I need to know who I really am. The Queen Mother stood. Then I invoke the trials. Tomorrow at dawn. That night, Seraphina couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony, her new inner sight letting her perceive the world in ways she never imagined. The palace blazed with hundreds of souls, each a different shade of light. You're afraid, Theron said, joining her. Terrified, she admitted. What if I fail? What if Magnus was right and I really am just... He kissed her, soft at first, then deeper, until her doubts melted away. You saved a dying alpha using only touch and instinct, he murmured against her lips. Raised our son alone while being tortured daily. Survived poisoning that would have killed most wolves. You've already passed every trial that matters. Papa's right, Kyle said, padding out in his nightclothes. You're the strongest person ever. Even the moon told me so. The moon? Seraphina pulled him close. In my dreams. She says you're her daughter, chosen before birth. She says tomorrow, everyone will see what we already know. And what's that, little wolf? Kyle grinned. That you're not just a queen. You're the queen, the one from all the old stories, who'll make everything better. From the courtyard below, she could sense crowds gathering. Word had spread. The blind Omega would face the queen's trials. Whatever happens tomorrow, Theron said, pulling both of them close. We face it together. But through her new sight, Seraphina could see something dark approaching. A soul filled with such malice it made her shiver. Someone was coming. Someone who wanted her dead. Magnus's brother Garrett, she realized, the one mentioned earlier. And he would arrive with the dawn. Dawn broke blood red over the palace as hundreds gathered for the queen's trials. Seraphina stood in the center of the great courtyard, her inner sight showing her the swirling emotions of the crowd. Curiosity, skepticism, hope, and from some corners, naked hostility. The first trial, Elder Roderick announced, is wisdom. The queen must solve the paradox of the divided pack. An ancient puzzle that had destroyed potential queens for generations. 2 wolf packs claim the same territory, each with equal right, each willing to die before yielding. How does a queen resolve it without bloodshed? You have 1 minute, Cassandra said coldly. But Seraphina didn't need it. Her inner sight flared, showing her the truth beneath the riddle. There is no paradox, she said clearly. Two packs with equal claim means they were once one, divided by conflict. The queen doesn't choose between them. She reminds them of their shared blood. Unity through recognition of common origin. Stunned silence. That's correct, Roderick said, sounding shocked. The fastest anyone has ever. She cheated, a new voice roared from the crowd. The blind whore used magic. A massive alpha pushed through. Garrett of the Northern Wastes, Magnus's brother that Theron had mentioned. You're supposed to be in exile, Theron snarled. I came to witness justice. My brother exposed for 23 years and you'd make his victim your queen? Garrett spat. I challenge her claim, trial by combat. She's not a warrior, Theron began. I accept, Seraphina interrupted. You can't. You can barely walk, let alone fight. The second trial is courage, isn't it? She stepped forward. What's more courageous than facing an alpha warrior without traditional sight? This is murder, the Queen Mother protested. It's law, Garrett grinned, unless she's too cowardly. Mommy, no. Cale tried to run to her, but guards held him back. You can't see him. He's huge. I can see what matters, Seraphina said quietly. His soul is small, shriveled with hate. That makes him weaker than he knows. The circle formed. Garrett shifted into his massive wolf form, all muscle and fang. Seraphina remained human, small, seemingly defenseless. Shift, Theron commanded her. At least give yourself a chance. No. She stood perfectly still. My wolf isn't meant for violence. Garrett lunged. But Seraphina's inner sight showed her his intention before his body moved. She stepped aside, barely a whisper of movement, and he crashed into empty air. He attacked again. And again. Each time she moved at the last second, guided by the aggressive flares of his soul light. Stop dancing and fight, he snarled, shifting back to human form. I am fighting. Just not the way you expect. Then die. He pulled a hidden blade, silver-coated, illegal in formal challenges. The crowd gasped. Even his supporters recoiled. A poisoned blade? Seraphina didn't move. Like the poison you helped your brother feed me all those years? Shut up. You were there, weren't you? When they killed my parents? I can see it in your soul. The memory stains you. I said shut up! He charged with the blade. This time, Seraphina didn't dodge. Her hand shot out, guided by an instinct deeper than thought, and caught his wrist. Power flooded through her, not violent, but overwhelming. Garrett screamed. Where she touched him, light blazed. His soul, all its darkness and cruelty, was suddenly visible to everyone. The crowd saw what she'd always seen: the murders, the cruelties, the pleasure he took in others' pain. This is what threatened to rule you, she said, her voice carrying to every corner, darkness disguised as strength. Garrett collapsed, sobbing, overwhelmed by being forced to truly see himself. The second trial is past, Roderick said shakily. Courage beyond measure. The third trial, Cassandra began, is heart. Cale's voice rang out as he broke free from the guards. And my mommy already passed it. She loved me when everyone said I was worthless. She loved Papa even when he couldn't find us. She even shows mercy to people who hurt her. That's the biggest heart ever. A child's testimony doesn't... Someone protested. Then take mine. The Queen Mother stood. This Omega saved my son, raised my grandson, forgave unforgivable cruelty. If that's not hard enough to be queen, then we don't deserve her. And mine, a familiar voice said. Seraphina's inner sight flared. Ilara? Her friend from Crimson Fang, the one who'd helped hide her pregnancy, stood at the crowd's edge. I'm not the only one, Ilara said. Every Omega she ever helped, Every wolf she healed in secret, every kindness she showed despite her suffering, we remember. One by one, wolves stepped forward, dozens of them. Omegas, betas, even some alphas, all testifying to secret kindnesses, hidden healings, mercy shown when none was deserved. She helped my pup when he was sick, gave me her food when I was starving, took a beating meant for me. Serafina felt tears streaming down her face. She'd thought herself alone all those years, but she'd never been. Her light had touched so many, even in darkness. The trials are complete, Roderick announced, his voice thick with emotion. The queen has been chosen. But through her inner sight, Serafina saw Valencria breaking free from her guards, a blade glinting with the same poison as Garrett's, aimed at Kale. No! Serafina moved faster than thought, faster than sight, pure maternal instinct guiding her. The blade meant for her son pierced her chest instead. Mommy! Kale screamed. Serafina! Theron roared. As she fell, her inner sight exploded outward, showing everyone present the truth, Valencria's jealousy, Magnus's greed, but also the love blazing from thousands of hearts, all directed at her. My queen, voices whispered, save our queen. Light. Pure silver light flooded through Serafina as she lay dying on the courtyard stones. But it wasn't the cold light of death. It was warm, alive, pulling her back from the edge. The silver moon healing, someone gasped. She's healing herself. But it was more than that. Through her inner sight, now blazing beyond anything she'd experienced, Serafina could see threads of power flowing from the crowd. Every wolf she'd ever helped, every kindness she'd shown, was returning to her threefold. Mommy! Kyle's tears fell on her face. Please don't leave me. Never, she whispered, her hand finding his small one. A silver moon queen protects what she loves. The wound in her chest began to close, the poison burning away under the silver light. But more than physical healing was happening. She was transforming. Impossible, the healer breathed. The full awakening. It hasn't happened in 300 years. Serafina rose, and when she stood, she was changed. Her unseeing eyes now swirled with silver light, her midnight hair streaked with moonlight strands. Power radiated from her, not the brutal power of an alpha, but something older, deeper. You tried to kill my son, she said to Valencria, who cowered on the ground. Please, mercy. Mercy. Serafina's laugh was soft but terrible. I'll show you the same mercy you showed a blind Omega for 23 years. She reached out, and Valencria screamed, not in pain, but in horror, as her own soul was revealed to everyone. Every cruel deed, every jealous thought, every moment of pleasure taken from another's suffering. Live with that, Serafina said simply. Live knowing everyone sees exactly who you are. Valencria fled, sobbing. She would never be able to hide her true nature again. The northern wastes reject Magnus and Garrett's line, someone shouted. We stand with the true queen. The eastern peaks stand with Queen Serafina. The storm riders acknowledged the Silver Moon Queen. One by one, every pack present declared their loyalty, but Serafina barely heard them. Her inner sight was fixed on Theron, who stood frozen, staring at her transformation. I understand if this changes things, she said quietly. I'm not the simple Omega you found. He kissed her. Deep, passionate, claiming. You're right. You're not the Omega I found. You're more. You've always been more. My wolf knew it from that first night. You weren't just my mate. You were my queen. Papa's right. Kale bounced between them. Mommy, you're glowing. And I can feel it. You're wolf. She's silver like the moon. The ceremony, Elder Roderick called out. The official mating and coronation. It should be done now, while the moon's blessing is upon her. Wait, Seraphina said, turning to where Magnus knelt in chains. Through her inner sight she could see his soul. Dark, yes, but also broken, afraid. You killed my parents, stole my life, tortured me for decades. She walked to him slowly. By rights, I should demand your death. Please, but I'm not you. She placed her hand on his head, and he gasped. I sentence you to something far worse than death. Empathy. From this day forward, you'll feel every pain you've ever caused another. Every moment of suffering you inflicted will echo in your own heart. Perhaps in time, you'll learn what you never understood, how to truly lead with compassion. Magnus collapsed, already writhing as 23 years of Seraphina's pain flooded through him. That's the difference between us, she said to the crowd. You ruled through fear. I will lead through understanding. The queen shows mercy even to her enemies, someone shouted. Long live Queen Seraphina. The chant spread. Long live the queen! Long live the Silver Moon Queen! The coronation and mating ceremony was swift but profound. As Theron bit her neck, completing their bond, and the crown touched her head, Seraphina felt the final piece click into place. Her inner sight expanded, deepened. She couldn't see faces or colors the way others did, but she could perceive something far more valuable, the truth of every soul, the connections between all living things, the very fabric of fate itself. Mommy, you're beautiful. Kale laughed, tears streaming down his face. Your soul is so bright. I don't need traditional sight, she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. I can see what truly matters. Your hearts, your souls, your potential. You're all beautiful, my little wolf. As are you, Theron murmured, staring at her in awe. My queen, my mate, my everything. As the crowd erupted in celebration, Seraphina stood between her son and mate, no longer the blind Omega who'd suffered in shadows. She was the Silver Moon Queen, the one who could see beyond sight. Your Majesty, Ilara approached nervously. What are your first commands? Seraphina smiled, and though she couldn't see it herself, she felt its warmth reflected in every soul around her. Gather all the forgotten ones, the Omegas deemed worthless, the wolves cast aside, the ones told they'll never amount to anything. Her voice carried across the courtyard. Tell them the blind queen calls them home. Tell them their time in the shadows is over. And tell them, she added, her inner sight blazing with purpose, that in my kingdom, everyone will be seen for who they truly are, not with eyes, but with understanding. The prophecy was complete. The blind Omega had become the queen who could see everything that mattered, and her reign of true sight had only just begun.